Alright, you have to bear with us, we're having streaming issues. This is what happens when you don't have a real studio and you have to use the internet other people let you use. Welcome to GrokTALK, I'm Steve McDonald, and we are, as always, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeart, and on the Rock, NHCR.com. And of course, GraniteGrok.com, where you may or may not be listening to our stream, depending on whether or not the internet's working or not. That's just one of the burdens that we're forced to deal with here.
Reboot.
So, let me turn you back up. Are you good?
Reboot.
Reboot. All right. Well, hey, reboot. Good deal. All right. Show continues. This is different. We don't usually have journalists in the studio with us, but today we do. Our next guest is a political reporter and editor for PBS NewsHour. She has been a senior correspondent on Capitol Hill with CNN, a political and state house reporter with South Carolina local television, a freelance reporter. Lisa Desjardins is with us today. Hi, how you doing?
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, glad to have you.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you.
So, before we started the show, we were talking about events and coverage, and obviously you're a political reporter for
Right.
PBS NewsHour. You do this all year long.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, people ask me at work, because they know that I'm a blogger and that I do this as a hobby, how can you stand it? It's always so depressing, or it's always this or that. And I'm like, I don't know, after a while you just kind of get used to it. Is it?
I guess so. Well, I grew up in politics. I grew up in phone banks and going door to door. And I unfortunately was partial to a lot of sort of dirty tricks going on. And that made me want to become a journalist. But I think the good things that I saw in politics growing up made me want to cover it. You know, seeing the people that were able to break through and actually really that cared about what they were doing. I think that keeps you going, but I got to admit, even for someone like me who loves policy, I love covering Congress. I think even small things there can be very important. We miss a lot of the small stories that are very big. But even for me, the last few years have been tough. The last few years have been I've seen a lot of reporters just leave Capitol Hill because they don't think there's much meaning there. They don't think there's a lot of point to covering it. I still disagree, but it can be tough.
Well, when we sit down later, that's really part of that whole debate
That's
that you've been asking about, the debate between the grassroots and the Republican Party, and I think it's probably the same on the Democrat side, and it really comes down to what we like to talk about as local control, and that would pretty much be the focus of the debate. Who is in government who is protecting local control? I mean, we had a revolution because our problem was local control. We had a distant monarch who was, you know, the perception was everything was very arbitrary. Well, it kind of feels that way now. And you have gentlemen like David, the fisherman we had on
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple weeks ago. He's just trying to fish for a living.
Yeah.
And he's got this regulatory state that's coming down on him that's going to crush his business. And everybody's like, oh, that's awful, that's awful. But yet, how did we get there from wherever? You know, people don't seem to understand that it's a local control issue.
Yeah, so, you know, over and over again, people thought, well, you know, there ought to be a law against whatever, and they think it's okay for government to interfere in somebody else's business, and before they know it, everybody's interfering in everybody's business through government.
Right, and it's a really interesting mix on the Hill right now, on Capitol Hill, where you have a lot of people who say they don't want to interfere in government, but then yet sometimes you see the bills they pass, and you know, now I don't have a political stance. You know, I sort of question both parties, but I think I've definitely noticed, I know this show has noticed, that in the past year there have been a lot of Republicans who say we're really worried about the national debt. We don't want more spending, but we saw a lot of spending get passed by those Republicans.
You know,
and I
the
think that's
manner
fair
in
to
which
question.
they did it. You know,
Yeah.
they did it in an omnibus bill. You know, they say, well, we can't do this anymore. We need to break these out and do it by committee and do it by, you know, department. And then they throw it all together. Well, we have to do this next time, next time, next time. It's always next time. It's the same thing with Medicaid expansion in New Hampshire.
Yeah, they're
We
just
have to
kicking
pass
the can.
this, but next time, you know, and then
But
at next time, and they're going to extend it again.
Yeah.
It's just-
Or I loved what you were saying about the sunsetting is not really sunsetting. That's really interesting.
Medicaid expansion.
Yeah,
On Medicaid expansion,
yeah.
they keep promising us that, and then we see what actually happens, and they just kick the can down the road and kick the can down the road.
yeah, and they said we'll take this federal money temporarily because it's the best deal, and we'll let it sunset. And of course, oh no, they wouldn't let it sunset, and you know, before long we'll be on the hook for a huge amount of money, as calculated by Emily.
I got a question.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
you said you followed the little stories. It came out
Right.
early this week, and I have yet to put it up. And it might have been Henserling or one of the folks from the Freedom Caucus
Right.
that said, we have to study on, after decades of Congress abdicating its power, now they're starting to say, we need to rectify that. And they want to either put a study committee together to say, how does Congress take back its power? And I'm thinking, you nitwits, either that or you're playing us for fools. Because you could have done that with the omnibus and just say, we're going to use the power of the purse. But you see the Republicans, and for those listening to the show on the podcast and streaming, the Republicans say we're always those for lesser government, less expensive government, yet they're just spending more than what they did before. Now they recognize that there's a problem, that Congress has now decided that, hey, we got to take back our power. Do you get that kind of a sense?
I think Republicans have wanted to take back congressional power. I think, and I think to some Democrats too. I think when there's a Republican, if there's a Republican president and there's Democrats in the Senate, they'll suddenly want to take back congressional power too. But I think that what's happening now, just my quick take on that, not really knowing exactly what Hensarling or whoever it was said, is that they realize that voters are not just angry, but voters are more and more taking action. And I think they need to be doing something. So this is something they think they can do, but it probably doesn't have any teeth, right? It's a study. But I think they're trying to look like they're doing more. Whether they're doing more or not, we'll have to see. But they're trying to look like they're doing more at least.
And I think you just hit it. They're trying to look like it, because
Yeah.
we've all been saying out here, if you read the Founding Fathers' writings, one of the most abiding things about the separation of powers was that each branch would jealously, and they use that word specifically, jealously guard their privileges and power. And yet we've seen from being, instead of branch to branch to branch, we're seeing it more party to party.
That's right.
And they throw away that stuff in the middle that says, this is what our fiefdom is supposed to be, don't you dare breach it. And saying, well, if the Democrats in power, the Democrats in Congress, Senate and House will support whatever they're doing, regardless of whether it's constitutional. Republicans were guilty of that in the latter stages of George Bush's term as well. And I'm thinking, if the founders could see this now, they'd be grabbing their own assault weapons at this point. You know, the modern sporting rifle or whatever you want to call it, and say, enough of this, off with your heads, because you screwed it up. And do you get that sense from these commitments?
Right. But it's interesting where you say one party or the other will oppose and try and take back power from the president, but that's a small part of the problem. The big part of the problem, dating back to at least the 1960s, is Congress passing bills that devolve most of the actual lawmaking, otherwise called rulemaking, to the agencies which they've created, because then their personal fingerprints are not on the bad stuff that happens. The only way to take this power back is to aggressively defund agencies and shrink their missions.
You've seen Republicans certainly start some lawsuits. Those take forever, but they are starting to sue over whether agencies can regulate in ways that they think Congress did not intend
That's
to do.
nuts.
I'm not arguing either way. Yeah,
but they don't need to do that. By going
You're
through,
saying that defunding is the way to go.
yeah, by going through lawsuits, they're basically saying, let's put on a good kabuki theater dog and pony show. They're not doing the job that they're sent there to do. The whole thing about Congress created and Congress can destroy. Gives and takes away. Congress created these agencies, these semi-autonomous agencies, which are part of the executive branch, but Congress created them in order that they didn't have to have their personal fingerprints on the bad stuff that would happen as natural consequences of Housing and Urban Development, Equal Opportunity Commission, EPA, and so on. We're all for clean air and water, but we're not for an enormous regulatory agency that stops normal business from happening. And the only way you shut that down is for Congress to rewrite the law authorizing these much more specifically with a much smaller budget.
Would you go so far as would you ever even envision, this is sort of a wild thought, but would you ever envision the bulk of agencies working more for Congress? We sort of evolved a system where certainly the president executes the law. But would you see rulemaking? I'm just saying in Washington's a process town, right? So somebody has to write the rules that come out of the laws. I'm wondering if you would rather those people who write the rules work for Congress than work for the
No,
president.
I disagree with the premise.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
There shouldn't be the
Yeah.
rulemaking at all. The legislators should be doing
Writing
that
rules.
right from the
As they're
get-go.
doing
They
it,
should
yeah.
repeal the 1946 administrative rule law that gave these agencies to do this. Mike is right. They've abdicated their power and, yeah, basically their
My
power
premise
and
might
their
be
purview.
exactly what you're saying, though. I'm just saying that you have 535 members of Congress, they can't write all the rules. So I'm just saying, someone
no,
working for them exactly should
No,
write the rules.
No, and again,
But you're saying there shouldn't be, if they're writing more than that, they shouldn't be writing it.
they should be
Is that what you're saying?
enforcing the
Yeah.
law,
Okay.
period. This administrative rule bit has
Yeah.
gone way too far, where now they, look at the EPA, they write the rules,
Right.
which is the force of law, they have their own investigators, they have their own administrative courts, they have their own administrative judges, and they have their own,
Police
well,
forces.
police
And they have
forces.
SWAT teams.
Yeah, so
More
in
police
essence,
forces in Washington DC than anywhere else per
Well,
square mile.
and is that something that
Sure.
there's what, 30 different administrative agencies now that have their own SWAT teams? Is this what the founders envisioned?
Yeah, maybe.
This is
And they
insanity.
don't even need those because
Yeah.
look at David Gaithal, whose name I finally remembered.
Oh, wait.
You know, he's just a guy fishing.
There are over 50 federal agencies with SWAT teams, and they have now become, I did some research on this, they've now become a status symbol. You're not a real federal agency unless
gosh.
IRS, Bureau of
Well, they-
Land Management.
Do you guys have a SWAT team?
No.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
we
you guys-
Do you know what our tagline is? We are the safest podcast here in New Hampshire, and we are armed with more than just opinions.
See? That's
And we
great.
are.
You are
That's
safe
great.
here.
But to David Gaithal, they don't, NOAA doesn't need a SWAT team to crush him, to take him out of business, to
No.
take him off the board. They just need regulations. They have a SWAT team. They use the Coast Guard to enforce these laws.
Yeah.
But again, it's the regulatory rock that's gotten so huge that, I mean, in every congressperson in New England, Democrat or Republican, is like, this is awful.
Why does the EPA need SWAT teams? Why
This
are
is
there fish
awful.
and wildlife agencies that need SWAT
Why are
teams?
they charging this way? Yeah.
Why are they breaking into a beaver dam with a SWAT team? Why are they doing this? Why are they going into a log cabin somewhere?
And I hate to use you as an example.
But you're
Okay.
going to.
I'm
Or a
going
bear.
to, yes, because that's how we do
It's
things
okay.
around
No,
here.
I get it. I get it.
And it rolled
No
off your
special
lips.
treatment.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want any special
Yeah,
treatment.
it rolled off
Yeah.
your lips so, not carelessly,
Oh, boy.
but
Casually.
no, casually.
Yeah.
That, well, somebody's going to write the rules.
Okay.
And the underlying premise was, of course the executive branch is going to write
No, remember,
the rules.
I was proposing a completely alternate
No,
premise.
No,
so-
but you still had these agencies working for Congress and still
Well, I wasn't
writing.
suggesting they need be agencies. I was just saying, I was trying to ask who is it that puts pen to paper? Should it be someone working for
What does
Congress?
the Constitution say?
You know.
Who is supposed to do the legislating?
All laws
Well,
shall.
but there's a legislative versus who executes, who legislates. This is exactly what I'm getting at. So what I'm trying to get is to feel what you guys would do. This is precisely the question I'm getting at.
Can we wait to
Yeah.
answer that in about 60
Yeah.
seconds? All right, everybody hang on. We'll take a really short break. We'll be right back.
I still can't get Ustream up, by the way.
But no, so I'm not saying that it has to be even an agency itself, but
Still in the air.
and I think where I'm coming from is exactly, maybe even to the right of where you're coming from, which is like, why does it have to be an agency working for the president? Why can't it be?
Well,
you know,
the
like
premise is
why-
that you still have somebody outside of the actual elected legislators
No, that's not what I'm saying.
writing the administrative law.
No, that's what you want me to say because you think
That's
I'm a
what,
member
no,
of
that's
the
what
local
I'm
media.
hearing. That's what I'm
But
hearing.
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, let's
Okay,
talk
okay.
about it when we
So
come
that's
back.
what I'm saying.
Because it's
What
a
I'm saying
huge
is,
point.
and what I'm asking you guys to figure out, because this is your dilemma, what I was getting from you, what I was trying to interpret from you, was the idea that it should be for the legislative body makes the rulemaking. That's what I'm trying. That's what I've been saying. That's not what
Right.
you've been hearing for some reason, but that's what I've been saying.
Yes, but it was only.
So I'm still not. There's a
Here we
disconnect.
It was the twist about the
You're being
agencies
very
working
precise.
for Congress. Let's clarify that, Skip.
Grok TV.